Alright, we are learning about 1.4, solving absolute value equations. Definitions at the top, you have the empty set, the symbol used to represent no solution, not, or the empty set. You can also just say no solution. Constraint, a condition that a solution must satisfy, so you will have constraints on your equation. Absolute values can never equal negative, would be an example of a constraint. Same thing when you square a number, or square root a number, you can't take square root of a negative number. An extraneous solution, when you find solutions, you got to plug them back in to make sure that they check. It's one of those times that you have to check your solutions to make sure that if they work. If they don't work, they're called an extraneous solution. It just does not make the statement true when you plug back into the original equation. So to start, we're going to evaluate, and then we're going to solve some examples. This is being done just in case I am gone, and also to help you make sure that you understand what is going on. So to evaluate, first and foremost, number 1. So we have w is -2, x is 4, y is 5, and z is -1.2. So we're going to plug in and just simplify. So make sure you show your steps. 2.7 times -2 plus the absolute value of the quantity 6 minus 2 times 4. Using the rules, 2.7 times -2 is -5.4. plus the absolute value of 6 minus 8, -5.4, plus the absolute value of -2. The absolute value tells us how far a number is away from 0, which means that we always have a positive distance. So the absolute value of -2 is 2, so -5.4 plus 2 gives you -3.4, and that's your final value. I'm going to jump to number 3. So I have the absolute value of 3 times -1.2 plus 1, absolute value, minus 4 times the quantity of -2 times 4 plus 10, absolute value. So that's the absolute value. So you got to take the absolute value of this quantity, then take it times 4, and then you're going to subtract it from this value. So 3 times -1.2, -3.6 plus 1, gives me the absolute value of -2.6, double checking, minus 4 times the quantity, -8 plus 10, absolute value, 4 times the absolute value of 2. The absolute value of -2.6 is 2.6, minus 4 times the absolute value of 2 is 2. So I'm going to take 2.6 minus 8. So 2.6 minus 8 is 5.4, and it's -5.4. So that's the value there. Pay attention to your absolute values. They are parentheses or notations of groupings, so you need to make sure that you pay attention to those. The next thing we're going to talk about is solving, and you must check your solutions. Once again, if you don't check your solutions, you have your extraneous solutions, solutions that may not work. When you solve absolute values, you have the part that is on the inside. Once you get the absolute value by itself and isolated, you set it equal to the answer that you have, and also the opposite of your answer. So I'm going to do A and B first. So we take the value of A equals B, which means I take the inner part of the absolute value and take y plus 3 and set that equal to 8, because the absolute value of y plus 3 can be a positive answer, but the other answer to get you a positive 8 is also -8. So we're going to take what is on the inside and then set it equal to the opposite of what we see. Because if I get the value of -8 inside the absolute value of -8 is a positive 8. So solving this out, so I now have my two solutions. I have 5 and -11, so I'm going to check them. So the absolute value of 5 plus 3 must equal 8, and the absolute value of -11 plus 3 must equal 8. This is the absolute value of 8 equals 8, which is true. The absolute value of negative 8 equals 8 is true. So both of my solutions work. So my answer is y equals 5 and negative 11. That's the first one. Next one I'm going to do is we're going to do b. So I have to get the absolute value by itself first. So I'm going to minus 5 minus 5. So the absolute value of 6 minus 4t equals negative 5. So the absolute value must equal a positive answer. You cannot equal a negative answer, because if you take the absolute value of something and you get a negative value, something's very wrong, because the distance of 6 minus 4t doesn't work to ever be negative 5 units away from 0. But mathematically, if you solve this, I'm going to solve it for 1 just to show you, because when I check my solution, it will also not work, just in case you solve it. And that's why it's so important to check your answers. So 6 minus 4t equals negative 5. Minus 6 minus 6. Negative 4t equals negative 11. Divide by negative 4. Divide by negative 4. T equals 11 fourths. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this in. So the absolute value of 6 minus 4 times 11 fourths plus 5 equals 0. So I'm going to take this value in here and just show you absolute value of 6 minus 11. The absolute value negative 5 plus 5 must equal 0. 5 plus 5 equals 10. That doesn't work. So that's why when you take the absolute value, it can never equal a negative answer. This is going to be the part 1 video, and there will be a second video with the other examples.